From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius and Patrick Walker.
Nevada's Gaming Commission made an example of Wynn Resorts, slapping the casino with a $20 million fine. Thanks for joining us. I'm Patrick Walker.
And I'm Steve Sebelius. That fine is 4 times the previous record penalty ever levied on a Nevada licensee. The casino giant is taking responsibility for failing to investigate sexual misconduct and harassment claims against then CEO Steve Wynn. A commission document says that between 2005 and 2016, founder and former CEO Wynn was accused of sexual misconduct by 8 female employees, accusations the company failed to investigate.
The respondents allowed conduct and circumstances to occur that have tarnished the reputation of Nevada and gaming at a level not seen since organized crime was involved in the gaming industry.
Matt Maddox was brought on as CEO after Wynn was forced to step down last February. He promised commissioners the company has made changes in leadership, improved workplace policies, and training. Commission Chairman Dr. Tony Alamo says he believes the fine sends a clear message. Wynn has denied all allegations, even though he paid a settlement of more than $8 million.
All right, so it's a big company, but $20 million still, it's a lot. Where does that fine go?
Yeah, by law, that goes into the state's general fund. The legislature will have to figure out how to spend that money from there. Maybe expand the press room for us.
Hey, that's something that we will advocate for. Well, there were a couple of controversial bills in the legislature this week. One of them would allow police to check your cell phone after you get into a crash. The bill as written would treat the phone like a breathalyzer, so you would consent to search simply by driving your car on a Nevada road or face your license being revoked. A traffic safety bill is generating a lot of debate. Should police officers be allowed to check your phone after a crash to see if you were using it while driving?
I think it's acceptable. Texting and driving tends to be one of the leading causes of accidents, and it's very irresponsible for people to be doing that behind the wheel.
I don't think that's a good idea because I just think that's an invasion of privacy, and I don't think that's going to go very well.
I think it'll make a lot of drivers more responsible about what they're doing, and I think that if that's something that they could possibly threat, then they would almost never go on their phones.
The crux of Assembly Bill 200. Trained officers can use a special device that looks for data as to whether or not the phone was in use by the driver at or around the time of the crash. It would not allow other data to be accessed on that phone.
We have a law in the state of Nevada that says you're not allowed to have a telephone in your hand while you're driving.
Supporters say this gives an enforcement tool to police for laws that are already on the books.
People don't seem to care much about a $50 fine.
UNLV Vulnerable Road Users Project Director Aaron Breen says traffic crash statistics show a correlation with cell phone use, even when accounting for the valley's rapid population growth.
Because when cell phones became more and more in use is when crashes went up and up and up and up.
The ACLU has not yet weighed in on the bill, but others believe there are still privacy concerns.
It's a good concept, but I feel like it could be executed maybe differently to where it's a little more not invasive.
Well, the bill's first committee hearing was Friday morning. Some of the suggestions included limiting it to serious injury or fatal crashes. Similar bills have been introduced in other states where they have earned the nickname textalyzer bills.
Well, another controversial measure would change the way states elect presidential candidates, switching to the national popular vote. We all know it's possible to win the most votes in a presidential election but still lose. It happened in 2016 when Hillary Clinton won Nevada but lost to Donald Trump, who won more votes in the Electoral College. But if the agreement among the states to elect the president by national popular vote gets enough states on board, that situation would never happen again. Assembly Bill 186 would add Nevada to the list of 11 states and the District of Columbia, which have already signed on to the compact. Those states represent 172 electoral votes. Now, since a person needs 270 votes to become president, if states representing the missing 98 electoral votes sign on, the compact will become effective. Bill sponsor Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson said adopting the compact is about making sure everybody's vote counts equally.
The thing that I really enjoy working with the youth in my community is that those that are close to the age of 18 to vote and those that are 18, they always tell me, Mr. Thompson, we just want to make sure that our vote counts. So this proposed piece of legislation before you will ensure that every Nevadan to know that their vote matters and counts in the election of the President of the United States of America.
Now, Thompson noted that of the more than 5,000 elected officials in the United States, only the President is not elected by popular vote. And supporters added that Nevada could withdraw from the compact at any time in the future if leaders decide it's no longer serving the state's interests.
More representatives from groups including the ACLU, the League of Women's Voters, and the state's teachers union spoke in support of the measure. What about those who oppose it?
Yeah, that includes the Nevada Republican Party and some conservative activists who testified against it. One longtime Carson City fixture, Janine Hansen, went so far as to say Nevada's votes could be stolen if the state voted for one candidate and the national popular vote went with somebody else, because in that instance, the electors for the national popular vote winner would represent Nevada, not the electors for the person who won here at home.
Well, a recent 8 News Now story caught the attention of Congresswoman Susie Lee, and she took her concerns to the nation's capital.
The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy shed light on questions about a school for students with special needs and whether staff is secluding some students in an outdoor area. Now she has this update.
Chantel Meyer's voice is being heard in Washington, D.C.
I think administration is turning a blind eye, yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of parents aren't aware that it's even happening. Let's race. Go, go, go. Whoa.
The I-Team shared her story a little more than a week ago. Her autistic son Christian is nonverbal and had previously attended Variety, a school for special needs students in Las Vegas. Myers claims Christian was placed in this outdoor enclosure after he became frustrated with a classroom exercise on a day when it was 105 degrees.
My attorney likes to call it a hot box.
Are children being kept in an enclosed area to keep them under control in a Valley school?
After seeing the I-Team story,
my heart breaks for her.
Congresswoman Susie Lee brought the concerns to a national spotlight during a committee hearing on restraints and seclusions in schools.
In Las Vegas, we had an incredibly troubling incident.
As the I-Team previously reported, the Clark County School District refers to this as a patio area. And a spokesman said, quote, administration has since directed staff that the patio area is only to be used when a student initiates access.
Could we see legislation at the federal level to prevent something like you saw in our story with that enclosure?
Yeah, you know, first of all, Nevada is a state that does have regulations about it, and so, but definitely, I mean, this was a hearing that is, I think, the first step towards us drafting up potential legislation, Keep Our Schools Safe Act, which will provide national standards around this incredibly important issue.
Lee tells the I-Team the goal is not only to keep students safe, but also to make sure educators have the tools they need. According to a district spokeswoman, the only additional training required for special needs staff at CCSD is a video. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Chantel Myers was contacted by a school staff member at Variety School after that I-Team story aired, and she was told an investigation has been opened.
More presidential candidates campaigning in Las Vegas.
President and I couldn't disagree more about the value of immigrants in our country.
Former HUD Secretary Julian Castro makes his pitch for the nation's top office, and the other candidates can't.
breakfast star with cheese, only at Carl's Jr.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Governor Steve Sisolak is continuing his cleaning out of Brian Sandoval's appointments.
The governor announced that Paul Anderson will resign effective April 1st from the governor's office on economic development, or GOED. Anderson became executive director in 2018, replacing Steve Hill, who went to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. Anderson said it was an honor to serve, and he indicated he planned on stepping down once a new governor came into office. Well, Nevada may be a small state, but it has a big impact when it comes to nominating candidates for President of the United States. Nevada comes third on the calendar, right after Iowa's first-in-the-nation caucus and New Hampshire's storied primary election.
Yeah, that's leading us to getting a steady stream of presidential candidates coming through Las Vegas. It's earlier than ever before. Former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Julian Castro paid a visit to North Las Vegas, his trip focusing on immigration. We caught up with him in that town where he was having lunch with local dreamers and parents of dreamers. He says his priority is immigration reform and wants to see a balance between border security and upholding what he calls, quote, our collective values as Americans.
If I'm elected president, I will put forward legislation to reform our immigration system and to make sure that there is a pathway to earn citizenship for the 10 to 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country.
It doesn't resonate. In Nevada, we're especially working with the president on major issues dealing with immigration.
Nevada GOP chairman and Trump confidant Michael McDonald calls Castro unqualified to be president, saying Castro's resume and message on immigration are off base.
Several of the Democratic Party's top candidates have chosen to visit Nevada shortly after their announcements. On Friday, California Senator Kamala Harris spoke at the Black Enterprise Women of Power Summit and held a town hall at Canyon Springs High School up in North Las Vegas. 2 weekends ago, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren spoke to supporters at the Las Vegas Springs Preserve. And last weekend, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker spoke to supporters at Nevada Partners in North Las Vegas. Both politicians were careful to give Nevada props. By the way, as of today, the next presidential election is 612 days away.
Who's counting, right? Well, letting police check the phones on the scene of a crash.
It's just too much of a slippery slope, too big brother for me.
I have no use for people who threaten my life.
Face-Off panel takes on the bill that had people talking this week.
And physician-assisted suicide is back on the legislature's agenda. How the third attempt to get the bill passed went this week.
Only on 8 News Now.
Earlier in the show, we talked about a bill that would let police check your phone to see if you were using it when you got into a crash. It generated a lot of talk on our social media this week, so we put it to our face-off panel. Here's KXNT radio host Alan Stock and Battleborn Progress Deputy Director Maria Teresa Lieberman.
I understand the intent of the bill. I don't like that this is really a slippery slope to start. I don't want my phone to be looked at by someone while, you know, during a car crash. I think it's for a lot of people it's going to be something sort of a violation of your personal rights before you have a lawyer present, before it's just too much of a slippery slope, too big brother for me.
I would think probably more conservative Republicans will be agreeing with you, and some libertarians agreeing with you. And here I am. I'm going to come down on the other side, and the reason for it being, we were talking about this earlier, that I can drive on the freeway, and I imagine you too, and no matter where I'm driving, people are holding their phones up like this, like they're not supposed to right now. You're supposed to do it hands-free. I've seen people driving on freeways texting and things like that. It's against the law. There are no cops around. They're not getting ticketed or busted or anything like that. But I've seen this occur. Thousands of people per year get into accidents based upon being distracted. 500 people nationally a year die from being distracted, and they're saying almost all of those 500 are being distracted by somehow use of a cell phone.
So from your perspective, should there be other things that are done, perhaps increasing the fine, something to that effect to be more preventative so you don't have to get to that point?
Yeah, I think there's definitely ways that we can give this a lot more teeth, whether it's increasing the fine, because I agree. I think it needs to be enforced, because apparently it's not working. People are still on their phones. Right. People even are holding it up to their ear. And that does cause it does cause dangers on the road, but sort of, you know, from the libertarian, extra conservative, sort of individual talking philosophy, I don't want it to be to where everything can be looked at. I think if we're talking about the specific bill, there has to be some negotiation about where do we draw the line about not violating personal liberties at the end of the day, because it is your personal property. So we need to figure out what kind of crash is it going to be, you know, because it can't just be you bumped someone in the back and no one was hurt, and all of a sudden you're looking at a person's personal information.
Cell phone usage, texting and talking, all relatively still new, so the laws regarding the usage of these things is evolving, and you're getting so many people, as you've seen and I've seen, I'm sure you have too, holding their phone up and maybe texting while they're driving on the freeway. I'm sorry, you know, again, it's my life, my children's life, my grandchildren's life. You want to fall off a cliff? Be my guest.
Well, the panel also debated the national popular vote bill, if the fine given to Wynn Resorts was enough, and the Michael Cohen hearings before Congress. That's on LasVegasNow.com. Look for political news under the News tab. Patrick?
All right, Steve, believe it or not, there are some other bills on tap at the legislature this week. We've been talking a lot about a couple of them, but here are a couple of more. Pet owners will love this bill. AB 161 would require HOAs to let people keep at least one pet, no matter what the HOA's rules are. That includes birds, cats, dogs, and aquatic animals that are in a tank. And if you are tired of a new election every year, oh, that kind of sounds familiar, then AB 50 is the bill for you. It would line up our off-year municipal elections with the statewide election cycle. So some positions like judges would get an extra year added to their term to help the upcoming elections all line up. It had its first hearing on Thursday. And a controversial bill would legalize physician-assisted suicide.
I want to be able to spend my last days and hours, though, with my family and friends, being able to celebrate life. And then when I feel that the time has come, I should be able to make the choice when I end my life instead of letting the cancer take me.
I oppose this bill because if assisted suicide is legal, some people's lives will be ended without their consent through mistakes and abuse.
Well, this is the third session in which Nevada State Senator David Parks has introduced a physician-assisted suicide bill. Senators narrowly passed a similar bill 2 years ago during the last session, but it did not make it out of the Assembly. SB 165 would allow physicians to prescribe medication to terminally ill patients that would end their lives, provided they meet certain qualifications and have been informed of all of their treatment options. So, Steve, we told everybody about some bills generating talk earlier in the show, but this one really has been generating the most statewide.
Yeah, absolutely. It has nearly 2,000 submitted comments from the public. That's a new record for any bill this session, surpassing the previous record that was set by the gun background check bill during the second week of the session.
Well, money for parks and public lands in Nevada, the program that Congress has just voted to restore, is
Rose Dominican Hospitals.
You're watching Politics Now.
Stopping the recent measles outbreaks around the country was the topic of discussion at several congressional hearings this week. Our Washington, D.C. bureau correspondent Alexandra Limon was there and breaks it down for us. What were you hearing? What stood out to you?
Well, the people who testified were the heads of the infectious disease divisions at the CDC and NIH, and there were some surprising things that they told lawmakers. Number one is just the sheer number of measles cases that they're detecting around the United States. In the first 2 months of 2019 alone, there have been at least 159 confirmed measles cases affecting 10 different states, and then last year in 2018 there were 352 cases. But keep in mind, the measles is a disease that was considered eliminated in the United States because of the vaccine. So that is very surprising. Then the other surprising thing is that these experts talked about what's driving these numbers up. There's been a lot of headlines about the anti-vaccine movement that's spreading, people and parents being concerned about the safety of vaccines, but they actually said that's only one contributing factor, and it may not even be the biggest reason that children are not getting vaccinated. They said cultural and religious factors are actually a big issue too.
Well, about 4 years ago, we had a pretty significant outbreak here, especially in the southern part of Nevada. A lot of that wasn't the religious indifference. We saw some of just the anti-vaccination movement and people who, for other reasons, did not want their children vaccinated. For some of those concerns, did the experts address some of those issues that people have besides just religious exemptions?
Yeah, absolutely. Lawmakers had a lot of questions about that, and the experts talked about both the safety and the efficacy of the MMR vaccine. And what they said is that this vaccine is incredibly safe. It's been used for decades, and there have been millions of doses distributed and used around the world. And that's one way we know just how safe and how effective it is. And what they said is that there's scientific evidence, case after case, that proves that the vaccine does not cause autism, and it typically does not have other serious side effects. The exception being children that already have very serious pre-existing conditions and diseases. They could be susceptible to some side effects.
And Congress has restored a fund that puts millions of dollars towards Southern Nevada public lands and parks. All of Nevada's congressional delegation voted for the bill. It's called the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and it lapsed in October. Since it started in 1965, more than $100 million from the fund is paid for projects in Southern Nevada. President Trump is expected to sign the bill. It's funded through fees paid by oil and gas companies.
Time now for What to Watch, where we tell you what we are keeping an eye on this following week. First Lady Melania Trump will be in Las Vegas Tuesday. She'll be giving remarks and participating in an opioid town hall, though no details on the time and place have yet been released. It is part of her Be Best tour.
And a bill on Wednesday in the Assembly Judiciary Committee would require everyone to be 18 years old to be married. Right now, there are exemptions and exceptions that allow younger people to be married. AB 139, sponsored by Shannon Bilbray Axelrod, would get rid of all those exemptions.
Well, that is another interesting bill, but of course we're going to see about 1,000 of those that get passed through there.
You just don't know what laws we have on the books until the legislature meets and starts trying to revise that. Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching Politics Now. You can email me at ssebelius@lasvegasnow.com.
My email is pwalker@lasvegasnow.com.